The union representing Air Canada flight attendants saying staff will remain on the picket lines on the ground until they get what they describe as a fair deal. The airline, meantime, says that this strike has been declared illegal and say it's up to CUPE to get the planes up in the sky. CP24's Beatrice Vaisman has more.
Certainly this afternoon brings a continued stalemate between the two sides, between CUPE, which represents the 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants who have been on the picket lines since Saturday, and its employer, both sides today confirming that there will be no Air Canada planes in the sky today. In fact, the union national president, who we heard from over the noon hour, saying we will not be in the skies today. And then late this afternoon, the Air Canada CEO confirming to our sister station, Business News Network as well, that there would not be any flights resuming today. In fact, some 500 to 600 Air Canada flights across the country canceled today alone. So far, about 500,000 people impacted by this strike. The CUPE national president asked by reporters, what is your limit? What is kind of the breaking point that the union is looking at here when it comes to defying the back to work order by the federal government? And essentially, we heard from Mark Hancock, the CUPE national president, there is no limit. He says they are committed to these members who are out on the picket lines across the country. He's prepared for the fines, and he's even prepared to go to jail. Here's more from Mark Hancock, CUPE national president.
We're going to stay strong. We're going to stay committed to making sure that those workers can do the job that they love doing and actually be able to afford a roof over their heads, to afford caring for their families. And if it means folks like me going to jail, then so be it. If it means our union being fined, then so be it. We're looking for a solution here. Our members want a solution here, but that solution has to be found at a bargaining table.
As for the employer of these 10,000 flight attendants, Air Canada is saying that this strike is illegal. And in fact, the head of the company is saying he's disappointed with the decision by the union to continue this strike again, despite a government order directing it to end, saying 500,000 customers have been impacted and we want it to end. The union leadership here today also, in fact, apologizing to the Canadian public, saying our problem is not with you. We understand you have vacations you want to take with your families. You want to get home, you want to get to your destination, but we are here fighting for a collective agreement for our members. Certainly as well, the union asked about public support. So far, flight attendants have had public support. Are they worried that it's going to waver over the coming days the longer this strike goes on? And again, an apology to the 500,000 people impacted by the strike so far, but asking for patience as the union tries to fight for what it calls fair wages for these flight attendants who it says have been essentially underpaid for the last 10 years. As for Air Canada, certainly it wants to get these planes up in the sky. It wants a resolution as soon as possible. Here's more from Air Canada's CEO.
You know, we just came off a 10-year deal with our flight attendants. And that 10-year deal was important because it allowed us to grow. And a vast majority of our employees are better off today than they were 10 years ago. Now, within that contract, there were annual increases that were built in. And over that period of time, inflation was around 25, 28%, I believe. And the wage increases, for the most part, over that period of time, almost covered inflation.
The union saying negotiations have not happened at all since Friday. They've happened here at the Sheraton on Friday, not since, and adding that it has received no communication today from the employer either. And so certainly chaos continues at airports across the country as hundreds of thousands of passengers left scrambling, trying to come up with a plan B to either get to their destinations or come up with another plan or even get their money back. But certainly no further, not anywhere closer in terms of both sides reaching a deal at this point. Back to you.
Thank you, Beatrice. Now joining us is John Graddick, faculty lecturer in aviation management and supply chain management at McGill University. John, always appreciate your time, and it seems we're talking a lot these days. So What does this mean for Air Canada to see this going into a third day since some planes were grounded? I heard as I was interviewing the COO, Mark Nasser, yesterday, he told me that delay from 2 to 3 days since planes were first brought down to the ground means that they have to go through a maintenance inspection that could mean that even if things were to resume today, it would take that much longer to get people in the air. So how much of a problem is this for Air Canada?
I saw your interview with Mr. Nasser yesterday, and I'll have to congratulate you, by the way. That was you had a lot of patience with that interview, so congrats. But back on topic in this one, Air Canada is really, the one organization that can really make this thing go away very quickly. Air Canada has been very, very low key, even with Mr. Russo, in terms of trying to understand, what is the gap that we have between what the union is looking for and what Air Canada is willing to offer. And I think there has to be a bit, if you're going to negotiate in the public domain, Mr. Russo, make sure that you are able to, in fact, provide the public with what it is that you're offering. Right now, we know what the union wants, and we don't know what Air Canada is looking for. So I think, the only way this is going to get solved, Andrew, is really the question of is get them both back at the table. Imposing it and getting, whether it's CIRB with mandatory arbitration, with binding arbitration, that this is not going to solve the problem. The union basically has got a lot of help behind it. A lot of, Canadian Labour Congress is standing up with the union. So there's a lot of union power hanging on behind the CUPE work stoppage. So this is only going to get resolved when both parties come back to the negotiating table. I say bring them into a table, lock the door, and I will only get you out of that room once you've hammered out an agreement. To me, that's the only way we can get this done.
Well, you said, John, that a lot of this is really in Air Canada's court, seemingly, because the union's been pretty clear what they want, Air Canada seemingly less so. I want to actually focus on one of those things with the limited time that we have left, and that has to do with this ground pay situation. And I know that because you work as having your expertise in aviation management, hopefully you can help me explain a little bit of what's going on here. There are other airlines, from my understanding, that have begun to pay more in ground pay. Is that something that Air Canada is basically having to follow suit with because it's becoming more of an industry norm?
Yeah, it is. It's a tsunami that's hitting Air Canada front and center. European carriers have been doing this for a number of years. Porter's been doing it for a couple of years. Even Ascan in eastern Quebec has been doing it. American, Delta, United, and now Alaska, have all come to terms with this ground pay issue. So Air Canada can't ignore it. It has to address it. And they say they have. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I will say that COO Mark Nasser did say definitively this has been solved. I will say that the union responded to me saying that's not true, but Air Canada has said this is resolved. It does remain to be seen if that is the case. But John, I think we're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate your time as always, John Graddick, faculty lecturer in aviation management at McGill University. Thank you, John.
My pleasure, Andrew. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you. All right.